Hello and welcome to the History Channel. My name is Idan and I'll be your digital history teacher. I'll teach you about international history from the late 1800s to the mid 1900s in a 16-part series. For the first four videos, I will be talking about Chapter 1, Empire and the Emergence of World Powers. But what is this chapter on? This chapter will be on the economic, social, and cultural background to European imperialism in the late 19th century, how, when, and why various countries developed empires in Africa and China, how the empire building process affected relations between European countries, and how the circumstances of Japan and the USA at the beginning of this period were, and how they both developed rapidly to become world powers. Specifically, we'll be on 1.1, why was imperialism a significant force for late 18th century Europe. But anyways, to get you familiar with this section, imperialism is the policy of expanding a nation's power by gaining political and economic control over more territory, also known as colonialism. Spain, Britain, and France, and a lot of European participated in imperialism. Spain conquered in South America, while Britain and France conquered in North America. We will start with Section A, Economic and Political Motives for Imperial Expansion. The main reason for imperial expansion was the desire to find and exploit new trading opportunities by a policy of mercantilism. Many businesses in Europe became wealthy by exploiting the government-supported trading situation using slaves. While some countries became free from others, the belief in mercantilism began to decline in the 1800s. Entrepreneurs began making large profit because they started using a new economic motive that helped them mass produce goods. Britain was the first country to have an industrial revolution by developing steam-powered machines, boats, and new railways. Europe and USA began rapidly gaining economic power in the 1900s, and France developed the second most powerful navy. Competition between many different countries' economies was enhanced by the period of price deflation, declining wages, and job losses. Africa, Asia, and Europe became big trading partners/groups, specifically for valued products being cotton, rubber, tin, silk, gold, diamonds, and palm oil. There was also an increase in nationalism in Europe. Britain gained incredible power, while France lost the war, called the Franco-Prussian War. European governments used countries overseas to prove their power, and many wealthy businessmen and landowners had political power in Europe until it started being threatened by industrialization. So, governments used overseas expansions to reduce the effects of industrialization on the wealthy people. So, that is the end of Section 1. We will now move on to Section B, the emergence of new imperialism. 1871 to 1914 experienced a wave of new imperialism. Imperialism was mostly focused in North and South America, while new imperialism went further into Asia and Africa. New imperialism was characterized by geographic scope, maintaining peaceful relations, and new imperial countries. Africa was known as white man's graves due to the many diseases, and a cure for malaria was created, and Europe showed interest. Technology became more advanced, especially in the military, and overseas control became easier. And due to the advancements in technology, Britain gained powerful weapons and won a war. Slavery stayed common in Africa while Europe banned slave trade. In the early 1900s, a few scientists created a theory through classification of race that white was superior while others were considered inferior. European nations were gaining overseas possessions to improve local lives. However, Lord Lugard said that Europe was superior to others because of rights and race. Next, we have Section C, Nature and Purpose for Africa. Europeans feared Africa because only 10% was under their authority, until opportunity increased and 90% was controlled within 30 years. This was due to the past developments in Europe's discoveries. Britain was first and quick to conquer around 30% for valuable trade routes and resources like gold. France was next and also conquered for resources such as palm oil and timber, and to increase their empire and influence after their war. Belgium went for rubber and influence after becoming a recently independent country. Portugal went to conquer for influence and to not be left behind. And Germany went for allies and later for influence and power. Next, we'll move on to Section D, the impact of European imperialism on Africa. European imperialism had a major effect on Africa because they developed governments, education, and more technological advancements. Because of this, Africa was randomly partitioned. African chiefs became exiled and later killed, and many African nations like Nigeria became controlled by Britain. Many died and the tradition was undermined. And from 1904 to 1907, Herero and Nama, the two countries, rebelled against Germany's rule, calling it a genocide. Now we move on to our last section. Section E, reasons for and extent of domestic support for overseas expansion in Britain, France, and Germany. Britain, France, and Germany supported imperialism. Even before imperialism, Britain was still had influence, and support for British imperialism was encouraged from a young age. Common items had images of British soldiers defending imperialism. Positives of imperialism were also spread, while negatives were ignored. To try and justify and show their imperialism positively and not as an exploitation. France later adopted a policy called the Mission Civil Strife. Germany wanted to promote nationalism and spread Christianity. And this guy, his name was Joseph Conrad and John Hobson, both wrote that imperialism was unjustifiable, inhumane, and overall harmful to each country participating in it. After this, there would be high competition causing greed that led to war. Well, that's the end of this section of 1.1. Tune into the next video for the second part of Chapter 1.